Welcome to the Deep Dive,
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Deep Dive, Emerald City Hockey Seattle Kraken podcast. RJ, the Kraken just keep winning. They're just a couple points out of the top spot in the division. 2 games left here before the Olympic break. Real opportunity for them to climb up the standings even more and really cement themselves in a strong playoff foothold here before the Olympic break and before the home stretch of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's the exact kind of momentum you want heading into the Olympic break. They've won 4 in a row, 5 out of 6. And yeah, the Pacific Division, the rest of it anyway, just keeps losing. So the Kraken have climbed their way up the standings. They are 3 points out of first place in the Pacific with some games in hand, and especially facing LA and Anaheim, not in that order, but to close it out before, I don't know why I said it in that order, to close out this run before the Olympic break. I mean, they can put themselves in a very solid playoff position. I think if they win both those games, and I kind of have the feeling they will, it's going to be hard to miss.
It will be. It will be. No, they're doing a fantastic job of, again, utilizing this time before the Olympic break to try to put themselves in as strong a position as possible for when everybody gets back from the Olympics. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but like I do have the idea that I think for the most part, I think teams are going to kind of maybe come out of this Olympic break a little sluggish, or at least the teams that have fewer players going might come out of it slightly more sluggish. Kraken are one of those teams, but as long as you bank these points here before the Olympic break, I think it puts you in a good spot. And we'll talk about all the other things that this team is doing so well right now and why they're having the success that they're having, and break down the success of some of the individual players as well, because there's a handful of guys on this roster that it feels like are really driving this most recent success for the Seattle Kraken there. You mentioned, though, the games against Anaheim and LA, and I do want to take this moment as maybe Fuji blocks you out there with his tail. I want to take this moment before we even get to the Rico ad read, just to mention that tonight is our live game commentary over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, where we are going to be watching that Seattle Kraken Anaheim Ducks game with all of our Terror of the Deep tier patrons. If you're not one, but you're interested, there's a 7-day trial you can sign up for over there and join us this evening. And then right after that game, available to everybody, where you normally watch Postgame Live, will be Postgame Live, where we can talk about the game and what the Kraken do against the Anaheim Ducks down there in Southern California. And then, of course, Kraken right back at it tomorrow against the LA Kings for that last game before the Olympic break at Crypto.com Arena. Again, I say it every time they go there. An arena they historically perform well in. So just always worth remembering when it comes to that. All right. Now, though, for the Rico ad read. And, a lot of times we talk about the work that Rico's in. That is why he's sponsoring the podcast, is for us to talk about his job as a personal injury attorney and all of that. But this time I just want to highlight, as again, the fever for the Seahawks is kind of reaching its pinnacle right before the big game on Sunday, and everybody's all excited about that. And based on some personal experiences of mine this past week, just want to highlight and let everybody know, unlike RJ and I, who are transplants up here in the PNW, Rico's a hometown boy. He is from Washington State. He's from Greater Seattle area, and has grown up with Washington sports. Grew up a hockey fan, of course, getting the Hockey Night in Canada feeds coming down over the border. That's how he grew up, a hockey fan as well. But I got to imagine Rico's really, really pumped to watch the Seahawks on Sunday.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We know he is. And I mean, it's great to be a local. Hey, Dylan, California transplants can sometimes be okay. Maybe like us, maybe like a Sam Darnold. I will throw his name in there.
Okay.
Maybe we're an okay company. That's the one that I will highlight. But no, it's all about the locals, and especially Rico.
Yes. No, it's hard not to think about that, especially after the Mariners run and now the Seahawks run. Just all the people that grew up fans of this. I spent a lot of time this past week with our friend Charles over at Circling Seattle Sports, covering the UW women's ice hockey program. they had back-to-back games against my school, Little Loyola Marymount University, Southern California Beach School. They're their first year of their women's ice hockey program, and they came up here to play 2 games at KCI. And like, my little beach school comes up here to Seattle 5 minutes from my home. I'm not going to go and rep them and support them. But spending that time with Charles and around all the UW fans and everything, which by the way, highly recommend going to those games. These were their last games at KCI, unfortunately, for the season, but next year, definitely recommend people go check out the UW women's ice hockey program. Really fun atmosphere. Games were packed too. Like,
The band was there, right?
yeah, well, the band was there for the last game because it was senior night. So you had 5
Yep.
seniors, moving on. And seniors, this is the 5th year of the program. So these are seniors that were very instrumental in kind of getting this program up and running from club level to now kind of going into the more competitive side of things. So it was really cool to be able to be there for that. But yes, the band was there in KCI on Rink 1. If you've ever been there for a Kraken practice, something like that, you can only imagine the level of atmosphere, we'll say, that could bring. And it was really impressive to see that in there. But no, rinks were absolutely packed. I mean, right up there with the more well-attended Kraken events, like certainly more than just a normal Kraken practice. But I'm talking like when you get to like dev camp levels where, you got to kind of look around to try to find an open seat. And so really, really loved seeing that for that UW women's ice hockey program and what it meant for them. Just,
And one more
really good
thing.
atmosphere.
Yeah, speaking of senior night too, I want to shout out one of the seniors, Chantal Carlson, former beer league teammate of mine. She is awesome. So
Mhm.
want to say congrats there.
Yeah. So, it was just really good. It made me feel connected to the area, to the sports of the area and everything. And again, just in between talking about that hockey, right? It's everybody talking about the Seahawks and what they can go and do. And it just made me think of Rico, another, Washington native. I'm sure is also very excited for that game on Sunday and all the work that he does to help his fellow Washingtonians and the people of the greater Seattle area here. And while we hope none of you ever need his services, the odds say that at some point someone out there will be involved in an accident, whether on the road, at work, or anywhere in between. And when you are, we hope you call Rico at 425-778-9800 or visit his website, ricotessendor.com, to schedule a free consultation. He's won millions of dollars for his clients and helped thousands of people in the greater Seattle area. And as a fellow member of the ECH community, we know he'll help you too. Real quick before moving on from there, just want to shout out Andrew for all the in-game announcements down there with the UW program. Does an incredible job on the mic. Definitely, if you're going for the hockey, obviously that's the draw. That's what you should be going for. It's a great night out. Get that college atmosphere, all the fun vibes of going to a college sporting event. But make sure you pay attention to Andrew's calls. Does a great job on there. And then you can also stream the games with Charles and Circling Seattle Sports. And it was cool. Brought me on to talk about the LMU Lions on there. And as one of 2 people wearing LMU gear in that whole building, the other person being a parent of one of the LMU players. I got a lot of strange looks standing up there operating the camera and holding the microphone calling that game. But you know what? It was fun to be able to rep my school that I never thought I would see play ice hockey.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't. First of all, I didn't know you were going to be there until I saw the post, and then I didn't expect you to make your broadcasting debut.
No, that was something. That was something. You know what? It's interesting too. There's a lot of respect earned for all the people on the broadcasting side of things. Already, I had that for everybody on the Kraken side of things. Whether you're talking about the radio crew with Everett or Al, or if you're talking about the TV side of things with John, Eddie, JT, all of them. But when you're calling a game, and I wasn't having to do play-by-play, I was just doing the color. You realize how long those stoppages can be when you're trying to break something down. I was still in like YouTube shorts mode where it's like you got to be fast and efficient and try to get this out there as fast as possible, and you've got time for to make 1 point. And it was like, no, during some of those stretches you can make 2 or 3 points, string them together. I was like, oh, I have too much time. What do I do with this?
Yeah, it is one of the challenges there when you have the whole game. And I think, I mean, It's hard too because you don't want to just have a bunch of kind of silence or downtime. Actually, this is the kind of thing that we face. Funny, it's a live game commentary
Yes.
tonight because that's basically our job for the Kraken Ducks game tonight with everybody. But the thing is, we've got chat. It's a conversation, right? We're all
Right.
hanging out with a bunch of our buddies on the live game commentary. With the broadcast, you don't get that. There's no interactive atmosphere. You have to be the show and the entire show. It's a different challenge, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, more power to everybody who does it because it's tough work. It's tough work, and they make it seem so easy. And I'll tell y'all right now, it's not. So want to give all of those people a shout out as well. All right. Before we dive into how the team is doing here, I guess one last scheduling thing from us. I think this is just kind of worth mentioning, just what the deep dive schedule is going to be over this next couple weeks here. Obviously, today it's coming out on a Tuesday, a little bit day late. It was travel day yesterday for RJ. We're going to have deep dive this week. Deep dive next week, where we'll cover the two Southern California games and the team heading into the Olympic break. And then that following week, if you could look at which day in February that is, we're going to not have a deep dive that week. It's kind of hard of the Olympic break. There's not really going to be too much on the Kraken front to be talking about, so we are going to take that week off, as you and I will be down in Southern California visiting family. And again, there's just not really going to be much to talk about on the Olympic front for the Kraken.
No, not really a ton of Olympic news. There'll be there's some Grubauer and Tolvanen updates that we'll get to eventually, but not a ton there. But we will stay on the Olympic coverage. If you want to hear what we think about the Olympics, though, we will be talking about it on our Red Glare podcast, which, by the way, is on a separate YouTube channel, separate podcast feed. If you haven't found it already, go ahead and subscribe. But we will be staying active on that with all of our Olympic takes.
Yep, definitely. All right, Kraken stuff. First up, just to get it out of the way. It's the tough news, but try to swallow that pill first. On the injury front, of course, Berkeley Catton got injured this past week, and we did get the news just the other day that they're going to go ahead and keep him out through the remainder of these games leading into the Olympic break, RJ.
Yeah, and I think that's the smart decision given it's an upper body injury. Look, we all saw what happened as he kind of rammed his head right into Oliver Ekman-Larsson's hip. I think that's just one of those unfortunate plays of, maybe being a younger player in the league and needing to learn how to protect yourself a little bit better in a situation like that. And so we can probably assume that's an injury to the head or neck area. I think it's good the team's exercising caution on that, especially with the Olympic break coming up. That's the kind of thing you don't want to mess around with if there are maybe concussion symptoms or something like that. And as unfortunate it is that the injuries happened, as with any injuries here, it's probably the best timing if you want to look on the bright side of it, just given that the team has such a long break coming up.
Yeah, exactly. It should give him plenty of time to rest up, heal up, make sure that, yes, his upper body is going to be in as solid shape as possible for when everybody returns after this Olympic break and you have that big push towards the playoffs. And, talk about that push to the playoffs, RJ. It's starting to feel a little less about push to make the playoffs and maybe a little bit more of push to decide what seeding you're in and maybe try to control your destiny a little bit for the Seattle Kraken, because they are playing as well as they are playing right now. As you mentioned all the stats earlier about the win streaks and how many games they've won their last little bit here. I mean, we talked about where they are in the division. Can they win the division? Like, should we even be looking at that if we're, or is this something that maybe you just take it as, look, they're winning, just enjoy the winning, and everything will shake out the way that it's going to shake out?
Well, I think there's an element of just enjoy the winning and it'll shake out how it does. That's not how I like to, and for some fans, that's fine. That's not how I like to enjoy the sport. I love to look at the standings. I check them every day. I like to run the numbers. I like to do all that stuff. So if that's the kind of thing you find enjoyable, no shame in that. And I think you should definitely look at it because the news is so good for the Kraken. When you look at the standings and one, how the Kraken are doing, but two, just what's going on around them in the Pacific Division. I mean, just taking quick stock of where they are. Kraken with 61 points through 54 games. They're 3 points shy of Vegas and Edmonton. They got 2 games in hand on Edmonton, 1 game in hand on Vegas. That's doable. Like, that is very catchable for those teams. I mean, heck, you win the games in hand, you're already ahead of Edmonton and you're right there with Vegas. I think we should be thinking about, can the Kraken win the division? And the Kraken really seem, when you look at the Pacific as a whole, the Kraken really feel right now like the only team in the entire division that is not a complete mess. You just run down the list. I mean, Vegas has lost, what is it? Eight, wait, five,
They're
seven.
3-5-2 in their last 10.
Yeah. So they've lost 7 of 8. That's what I was looking for. They've
Mhm.
lost 7 of their last 8 games. That's bad. Edmonton still can't figure out the goaltending situation. They're, about 500 in their last 10. They're not doing particularly well. Anaheim, impressive what they're doing through the injuries they've had, but they're still very injured. The Kings have been an absolute mess all season. The Sharks, I think this is huge for the Kraken. The Sharks look like they're really unraveling. I've been following them a lot. I mean, I went to San Jose the last couple of days. Big losses against Calgary and Chicago, 2 teams that they probably needed to beat there. The 2 of the easiest opponents you're going to get. It seems like everything is kind of hit. The clock is striking midnight for the Sharks, it feels like. And so I don't know. I don't really think they're a serious contender to catch the Kraken. There's no one else out there. That's it. There are no real threats again. Now, Vegas or Edmonton could catch fire at any given point. Those are 2 actually like potentially good teams, but they're sure not playing like it right now. I think the path is wide open.
Yeah, I think as much as we could talk about in a little bit, I think for some of the teams that have fewer Olympians, it might be a slower start coming out of the Olympic break for them. I feel like for some of the teams that have a lot of Olympians, this stretch, I think the Olympics kind of weighs on those players. They're starting to look ahead to that. They're in the group chats about that. They're figuring out housing over there. They're having those conversations with their teams. They're probably getting the packets as far as, hey, by the way, these are the systems we're running. Here's your playbook. Like, this is the idea of what we're going to be doing, right? You're having to start to think about all of that stuff. So when I look at teams like Edmonton, Vegas, and you think about their top players maybe having a little bit of a split mindset, not being able to 100% focus on what they're doing right now, NHL schedule wise, especially because they know, look, we're probably safe playoff wise. Like, we'll figure out seeding later. I do think this has allowed the Kraken to kind of come in here and win some games and put themselves in this position where they can be looking at seeding in a way that those other teams maybe aren't right now. And that's a good spot to be in if you can do it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think also you have to ask the question of how much does seeding matter? Because I think in a general sense in the NHL, doesn't matter at all. Like seeding does not matter. That said, if the Kraken can ensure that they are in the Pacific bracket,
That's the thing that matters, yes.
that's where it matters. Because the one thing you do not want is to just sneak in the final wild card spot and have to play Colorado in the first round. And then if you somehow get through that, have to play either Minnesota or Dallas, that's a death sentence. You're not getting very far. But if you can be in the Pacific bracket, there are no good teams in the Pacific Division right now. There's no telling how far you can go because nobody's any good.
Yep. No, I totally feel the same way. We've talked about it in the past. The kind of gaps in the armor for both Vegas and Edmonton. Ironically enough, kind of both goaltending being the thing that both those squads have to worry about. Kraken potentially in a spot where they can take advantage of that just because they're going to have good goaltending from one of their 2 netminders, you have to assume, given the options that they have and how both Philip Grubauer and Joey Decord have played this season. I look at the other things too, just to kind of talk about how the Kraken have been playing really well here. Kraken's goal differential is all the way up to just a -3. They're nearly even now on the season goal differential wise. That's been really impressive what they've been able to do. Obviously, the goaltending has been able to stay there. The defense has been able to stay there in this Lane Lambert system, but the offense has been slowly picking it up, growing. And now you're almost even there. And when you look at the other teams in the division, you look at Vegas and Edmonton are the only 2 teams in the division with a positive goal differential, and both of those are under 10. They're still single digits, so they're not exactly running away with anything there on that goal differential front. And then you look at the Kraken at -3, followed by Anaheim at -12, and the Kings at -10, and then the Sharks at -20, because things have certainly kind of unraveled there. Again, we've been talking all year long about the Sharks have been the other team with the publicly available analytics models saying they are just as bad as the Kraken on that analytics front. When was that going to catch up to them? Well, it definitely caught up to them. But I think that's just another sign that the Kraken are putting in the work. They're working on the right things. They're working on the things that they needed to be working on to change a lot of the close game results that they've been having this season to ensure that they're on the right side of those close games. Because, you look at the wins that they've been getting here during this stretch, and a lot of them are kind of close games. They're games that are played within a goal for at least the vast majority of it. Those are the games that, again, you got to kind of buckle down and find a way to win. And that's what this Lane Lambert team is doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really what differentiates them from the teams around them, whether it's the Sharks, who are losing games against Calgary and Chicago, or it's the Kings, who are just losing in overtime against everybody all the time, collecting all the loser points. That's kind of what separates them. And I mean, it's been interesting, this recent run of their schedule for the Kraken, because it's been like 5 games in a row now, it feels like, where every opponent they've faced has just been in a portion of their season where they've been absolutely in shambles. And I keep waiting for them to face a team that's not in shambles, and it just doesn't come up on the schedule. I guess tonight would be really the example, because the Ducks are still very injured, but like they're playing well. But like, with the Ducks as injured as they were in that game, New Jersey and Washington and Toronto, kind of their seasons all circling the drain at that point. And it felt like that was kind of the final knockout punch, for their seasons essentially being over in terms of playoff hopes. Washington at least like took that as a, they responded to it since, but Toronto and New Jersey are a mess. And then Vegas, lost 7 of 8. It's really interesting, but like that's going to be the key measure, I think, going forward. You look at strength of schedule the rest of the way, like on Tankathon, and all these teams in the Pacific have some of the easiest schedules remaining. Like the Sharks, I think, have the easiest.
They do.
If you look at
Don Lucian's model for strength of schedule remaining, it's the Kings that have the easiest schedule.
Well, I want to talk about that also.
I do quick. Too. Yeah.
Okay, because that's been shared out there. Like Don Lucian at The Athletic has shared his model for strength of schedule remaining this season. Now, it's not based on the team's records this year as far as like judging a team's strength. It's based on his model of like how good the team is based on previous player performance, and it's like weighted, I think, over multiple years and all of that. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty massively skewed, I think, in the Kraken's case.
I agree.
Because it shows the Kraken, and this is why it's been shared a lot in Kraken circles, it shows the Kraken as having the toughest remaining schedule in the league this season. Whereas if you just go by the actual records of the teams, which at this point in the season, I think is a better indicator.
It's probably fair.
I think through 50-something games, it's a better indicator of what a team is, rather than just trying to judge it out piecemeal based on how good the players are and the model and all that stuff. I think there's a lot of value in that sometimes, certainly like in the off season as you're judging things fresh. But when you look at what a team is this season, I think that's the better way to do it. And if you look at just the records, the Kraken have the 9th easiest schedule in the NHL going forward. Of course, the top 3 are LA, Anaheim, and San Jose by that measure as far as easiest. It's going to come down to which team can just steamroll over bad opponents. And the Kraken have showed they can absolutely do that this year. That's been the thing they've been good at.
Right. No, this is a team that wins the games that they're supposed to win. And then they've been able to win a surprising amount of the games that maybe they shouldn't win, right, going into them. Or at least they can stay competitive in those games. And then when you're talking about a 1-goal game in the NHL, that can kind of go either way, and you're able to kind of take care of things there. I mean, again, yes, this team has been unbelievably streaky. If they hit another downswing, all bets are off, I guess, right? But I think that for the most part, they're starting to figure things out. I mean, I talk about the 1-goal games, but like this past week saw the Kraken have 2 games where they scored 5 goals, right? Like they were not 1-goal games against Washington or Toronto. They were able just to kind of take care of them. That's a big part of why that goal differential has largely come out to close to even now for the Kraken on the season, is because of what they've been able to do in this last little stretch. And I do wonder how much of this is, one, this is arguably the healthiest the Kraken have been all season, and 2,
feels like it's finally looking like it.
Yes. And two, just the fact that, look, you are 50 something games into the Lane Lambert system, everybody's healthy and playing it, and you're actually getting to see, like, this is what the idea of, you know, playing that defensive structure, don't allow the good opportunities for the opponents, make sure you're taking care of rebounds for your goaltender, focus on those breakout passes up the ice to the wingers on the outside, and then counterattack, right? Counterpunch. It feels like that's just in swing right now for the Kraken, and they've just kind of figured it out. They know what they can do, what they can't do in this system, and everybody's just kind of playing to it, which is what you want to be doing. Like, that's what good teams do. Certainly a team that isn't going to necessarily just rely on a Connor McDavid level person who's just going to kind of create offense out of thin air for them, right? This is what a team like the Kraken should be doing, which is just playing to their system and trusting that that system is put in place by somebody who knows what they're doing and is going to put them in a spot to succeed. And I think that's what Lane Lambert has done, and that's what this system is doing. And it feels like for the first time we're seeing what the full played out portion of the system is, because there's been enough games that they've been able to go fundamentally through step by step building it out, and we're actually seeing it now for the first time in its full form.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I agree with you. Like, it's the kind of thing where, yeah, injuries can reduce the consistency there at least a little bit. I mean, it would make sense why this team. I guess the thing is they're playing well. They keep winning. It doesn't make, at this point, additional wins and looking good doesn't make them any less streaky. I feel like
Yeah,
technically it makes them more streaky, but
true.
still, like, it's only streaky if this like cools down and they go on another long losing streak or something. But it does look more consistent. I'll say that much.
I just think that, like, even though some of the games were like their last patch of the losing streak, right? When you're talking about what the game in New Jersey on January 14th, kind of through, you could go all the way to January 23rd, the loss to Anaheim, the 4-2 game
Mhm.
there, even though there was one win in there. Um, that still occurred during the stretch in January where it feels like the team has been together, healthy. You're getting that longer period of time of that Matty Beniers, Jordan Eberle, Jared McCann line together and healthy. And you look at the production that they have, and we're going to kind of break that down more individually in just a little bit. But I think having that consistency from at least that line providing some form of safer floor offense, right? Relatively consistent offense has then allowed you to have, the swings with the rest of the line as you kind of figure out where everybody should be. And Lane Lambert has been doing that during this stretch, trying to figure out, okay, who do I stick with Shane Wright? How much ice time do I give that line? Fourth line, got Melanson back. That's obviously been a big part of why they've been winning. We'll talk about him in a little bit as well. But just, okay, I have a proper energy line. This is how I want to deploy that proper energy line. That then helps in sequence what I'm doing with these other lines. And it feels like that's just what's been able to kind of get, shaked out here in the new year. Even when they were losing, it was one of those where, like, it felt like those were times where he was, figuring out that process chemistry wise. And then once he hit on it, everything's felt more sustainable than it has in the past. And again, maybe the team streakiness is still there, but it feels like the individual player streakiness is starting to go away in a positive way. And that, I think, should lead to then just more positive, even results for the team, you would assume.
Yeah, well, from a team building perspective too, this is what we've been talking about forever as far as needing a star player or somebody who can just take over a game and provide offense sometimes, because the Kraken actually have a proper first line that is producing like a proper first
Hmm.
line. And for as long as they can do that, it solidifies everything beneath them. You don't need the fourth line to score every single game.
Right.
You don't need one of the other lines to pop off. That's been their big problem, is that if you don't have a proper first line who's producing like a proper first line, you kind of have to rely on it being piecemeal, and then some lines are hot, some lines are cold. But right now they have a first line that is producing like actual star players. You can argue whether they are or not in the long run, whatever, but they are producing like a first line that has star players on it. and it just makes everything beneath it that much easier. And that's why we've been saying forever the Kraken need to bring in a proper star player, because that's what it can do for you, as we're seeing.
Yeah, no, it sets up everything. It allows systems to work. I mean, Jared McCann is basically a point per game player this year. And obviously there's been gaps in there where he's been injured, but 29 points in 30 games. And you obviously look at what he's done in this last month or so. I guess we're just going to fold in the individual player stuff here. You look at what he's done this last month or so, and obviously setting the franchise record for most points in a month has been a big part of that. And look, I feel like with him especially, this feels like him really trying to not just put the team on his back, because I feel like he's always been that guy where he's always been like, okay, I'm going to go out there and I need to score, right? That's just what he plays like. But it feels like he's getting the runway to do that through the system and through what Matty Beniers is doing. Like, it feels like the first time where he can put the team on his back and he's not having to run through multiple brick walls to do it, right? Where in the past it felt like, okay, he's got to carry the scoring and the defense knows that and they can just focus on him. Right now it feels like he gets to play a little bit more wide open. He's got more time and space to work with. He's got more gaps he can take advantage of in the offensive zone. And the system's putting him in better spots, I think, for his style of play and his game. He's getting in closer to the net more than what we've seen in years past for him. He's able to get up the ice and be part of these odd man rushes or these counterattacks a little bit more. And again, get deeper in the offensive zone because of that, because that he's playing against a soft defense in those situations. On the power play, they're putting him in more of a one-timer spot when he's out there, or he gets to play backdoor at times or try to set up guys in the bumper, right? Like, this system is utilizing his skill set and what he does well better than any coach the Kraken have had beforehand. Even though his results were there beforehand, it feels like this is coming a lot more natural and, easy in the sense that this is just how he wants to be playing normally for him than what we've seen in the past. And I think that's why we're getting the point per game level production instead of just the 60-point pace production that we've gotten from him in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, as you were saying that, I kind of just had the one-timer power play goal against Vegas where he's in the one-time spot, just kind of on a loop in my head. So I heard most of what you said, yeah. But absolutely, they're utilizing him better. I think that, yeah, and it's not even close compared to how previous Kraken teams have utilized Jared McCann in a way that just makes sense. Question for you, Dylan, as I look at the stat sheet here, he's got 29 points in 30 games on the season. Do you think he's got a realistic shot? Do you think he's going to lead the team in scoring by the end of the season, despite having missed 25 games? Do you think he's going to do it? I think he's got a real shot. He's only 8 points back of Beniers and Eberle right now. The only issue is that he's playing with Beniers and Eberle, and so it's hard to kind of gain points on them.
That's my thing, is I'm going to say no, just because assuming everything with that line stays the same, Matty Beniers should be able to add enough points in there to stay just a little bit ahead of him. I think it's going to be close, and I certainly think all three of them are going to be the top 3 point scorers for the Kraken this year. Like, that is not a question in my mind at all, right? Like, assuming everybody's healthy through the rest of the year, and I'm knocking on wood, those are going to be your 3 leading scorers this season, and potentially your 3 leading goal scorers as well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, McCann's already up there at number 2. Yeah, they are now. So, I mean, they don't have to pass anybody. And unless Chandler Stevenson somehow goes on another goal-scoring heater, I don't know that I see that coming, but maybe. Otherwise, yeah, it's pretty safe.
Yeah,
on the goals front.
Yeah, so I think he'll make it close. I think he could maybe pass Eberle. I think he's, just given his style, he has a little bit more playmaking than Eberle does to his game, a little less reliant on just those counterattack, rush chances than what Eberle is as far as his production. Obviously, Eberle brings other things. I think he'll be able to pass Eberle, but I don't know that he's going to be able to catch Matty, assuming that this line continues what they're doing.
Yeah,
Matty's too involved offensively. Who knew?
Yeah, no, who knew? Again, it's so great to see the growth from Matty Beniers this season, especially recently. It's all kind of coming into place for him.
Right, and so we can talk about him next, because the question I have for that is, is this him finally taking that next step. And obviously it's been a month, but it's been an unbelievably productive month, tied with Jared McCann for the franchise record for most goals in a month for Matty Beniers, 10 goals in January. Is this him taking that next step development wise, offensively, adding that part to his game, right? Obviously he's had the defense and everything like that, but is he finally taking that next step forward offensively where we can start saying, okay, maybe he is going to break free of that kind of, ideal, perfect, great if you've got him 2C, and he can actually become a proper NHL 1C?
You know, I'm sorry, I don't want to.
Or is it too early? It's been a month, so
but
like
I was going to
there's
say,
room for that.
I think it's too early over this sample size. And look, again, I don't want to be a downer here, but it has been about a month, and he's absolutely been performing at that pace. But I want to see it a little bit longer, because if you factor that month in and just look at the entire season, the whole picture, because I know he had a rough start production wise to start the season.
Mhm.
He's still at a 56-point pace on the season as a whole. And that does still feel about right to me as far as the type of player that we think he is long term. Remember, in his Calder Trophy season, his rookie season, 57 points.
Yep.
56-point pace. That's kind of the peak of what we've seen from him, 24 goals. That's basically what he's doing right now. Assuming he, cools off a little bit, because I mean, if he keeps this pace going, he could be a, top scoring type of guy, but I don't think he's going to keep this pace going. That said, like, I think even if he is that 58, this roughly 60-point player with the kind of defensive impacts he has, that's still a super valuable piece for a team. And, maybe it's not 1C worthy in total in like the whole league. But as we've seen, if you put him with a couple wingers like Jared McCann and Jordan Eberle, they are producing like a first line. And, they don't need to be necessarily star players. Like McCann and is probably the closest thing the Kraken have, but he's not a true superstar. Jordan Eberle's 35 and playing out of his mind. If he can work with players like that, and I think you see the best centers in the game where they're able to elevate their wingers to produce better than they would otherwise. I think we're starting to see that from him, and that might still make things okay. Besides, again, looking long term, if you build this thing right, you shouldn't need him to be that. He's never going to be a 100-point player. I'll say that right now, never, and that's okay. But you have like guys like Berkeley Cat and Jake O'Brien, who hopefully can be 80 to 90-point guys and take a little bit of that pressure off. So I'm still not sold on him even being like, a 75-point guy. But I'm curious to hear what you have to say, though, because like he's looked really good recently. Are you fully on board?
So I understand it just because Matty in the past has kind of burned us, right? Whenever he's gotten hot, it's like, okay, is this the time, right? And it hasn't been. Do I think he's going to be at point per game level like he's been during this stretch forever now? Probably not. But I'm seeing signs that I do think that this is sustainable, at least for the rest of this season and probably through next season, because I think a lot of the success that both he and the line are having is because of this Lane Lambert system. I think it's taking advantage of him defensively, like much like we talked about with Jared McCann, where it feels like it's putting Jared McCann in the spots where he naturally wants to be and where he naturally has ideas for how to score and all of those things. The system's doing that for Matty Beniers defensively. It's letting him play a lot closer to how he wants to play, how he played, with Team USA at the World Junior level, how he played at Michigan, as far as being more involved defensively in the center of the ice rather than having to be in, a strict zone structure where he's pushed way out to the corners and way out to the half boards and all of that kind of stuff. He's able to be a little bit more net front. He's able to go below the goal line a little bit more and kind of follow that puck carrier. And I feel like it's more natural for him there. And he's able to make a bigger impact there defensively, which then in turn allows Jordan Eberle, Jared McCann to play a little higher up in the zone, to be able to go off on those odd man rush opportunities for once they get the breakout, to be able to go and have those counterattack opportunities. And I think that line has been so much more successful at this because of Matty Beniers and his defense and him fitting this system and structure as well as he does. It's allowed those opportunities to exist as frequently as they have for that top line because of what he does defensively. And so I think that it's also gone a long way in increasing his confidence. And I think when you're talking about any hockey player, but especially the young guys, and we've seen this with Matty in the past, we've seen this with Shane in the past, when they're feeling it, when they feel like they're going out there and they are playing well, good things follow. The production follows. And I really think that's what's happening with Matty Beniers right now, is that those defensive things, they feel natural to him. He feels good doing them. He's doing a good job with it. That then generates that positive feeling, that confidence. He's able then to go out into the offensive zone, play somewhere that is not normal or familiar to him, the inside, but he has that positive energy and momentum, and I think it's just kind of carrying over, and I don't really know why it would stop given how much he's playing inside in the offensive zone.
See, that's the question that it raises, is because, look, he's always been good in the D zone. Why hasn't that translated to more production and more confidence and all that stuff in the past? And I think you hit on it, that he's playing in a different spot in the offensive zone. And so, a question for you, Dylan, I want to get your gauge on, because you asked, how sustainable is this? Now, Matty Beniers, he's been remarkably consistent over his career, NHL career. He's been about a 14% shooter. That's like his average. And he's been pretty consistent around that. He doesn't get too much higher or too much lower than that. In this stretch, since the new year, really, it's 2026, since everything took off for him, he's shooting at about 28%, which is unsustainably high. It's about double his career shooting percentage. He's not going to be a 28% shooter the rest of his career. That's fine. But my question for you, like, where, excuse me, how sustainable is this in light of, and this, I wanted to bring this up because Lane Lambert talked about this like a week and a half ago or so when I was at practice. And of all the stuff that I would love to, maybe get an honest answer from him on and really press him on, this might be near the top of my list. And he was pressed on it, by the way. Good question from Scott Malone about this, about the different things that Matty's doing in the offensive zone. And Lane Lambert volunteered that Matty Beniers has been working with Justin Rye, member of their coaching staff, on different things that he's doing, different areas he's going to in the offensive zone, like specific things and specific strategies within the O zone that have been really paying off and been a big part of what he's doing offensively. Now, Lambert was pressed on this, declined to elaborate further. He didn't want to talk about the details. I understand not want to give away the trade secrets, but I think that tells me that it's really important what he's doing. The fact that Lambert didn't want to talk about it at all. So, question for you, Dylan, like, how much of it is, and I think you feel like you see it. You feel like you've kind of figured it out. We've talked about this in the past about like where Matty's going and all this stuff, but like, how much of an impact can that really have on, because I think the elevated shooting percentage is because, you're going to shoot a high percentage when you're just whacking pucks in from right near the net, when you're swooping in and getting those perfect rebounds. Like, how much can he keep that going?
There's nothing to indicate that he can't keep it going. And that was going to be the next place I was going to, because I have NHL Edge up right now. So I have all of the shooting locations for Matty Beniers for the entirety of his NHL career, where he likes to shoot the puck from. And I've been looking at this just because we've been having to prep for the trade deadline and everything for league-wide reasons and for the Kraken. I've been looking at other players that are kind of known as net front players, net front shooters, people who do have above average shooting percentages and everything. And I've been kind of looking at what their trends are. And look, the bottom line is, when you take the vast majority of your shots from in close, from the high danger areas, which NHL Edge describes as basically in the crease and within like 10 feet of the crease, you are going to have a naturally high shooting percentage. Like that is just where it goes. You look at all the players that have the highest shooting percentages in the league year after year, and you either have the legitimate superstars, the Nathan McKinnons, the Austin Matthews, the Alex Ovechkins, or you have players like a Cirelli and a Braden Point, excuse me. Although Cirelli also does this, but both Tampa centermen there. You have guys like a Gabe Vilardi, who has a career shooting percentage over 18%, And I guarantee you right now, a lot of people don't totally know his name because he's not like a legitimate superstar or anything, but he's a guy that plays 15 minutes a night and is always going to end up with 25 goals because he's shooting 18% because he only takes shots from in close around the goaltender there, right? And so it just goes to show that, like, you don't have to be a superstar to have the high shooting percentage and to have that goal scoring production be consistent for you year over year and throughout the course of a season, as long as you're doing it the right way, which is going to that net front area, to those high danger places, taking the punishment. You got to fight through the defense there. It's tough. You also have to play in a system that's going to open up gaps for you to do that. But that's the beauty of this Lane Lambert system. It is opening up those gaps for Matty Beniers to go in there and to be available there. And when we look at him over the last 3 seasons, in 23-24, Matty Beniers had 38 high danger chances, according to NHL Edge. That put him in the 60th percentile amongst NHL players. That's forward and D. There's no way to just separate it by forwards for some reason. I wish that was the thing.
That'd be nice.
Or it's averaged by position, forward and D. So maybe it is done by forwards then. In last season, 24-25, he had 49 high danger shots, and that was good enough for 76th percentile amongst NHL forwards. And then this year, he already has 48 high danger chances, and he's in the 91st percentile amongst forwards for taking shots in those high danger areas. And it is the first year that his graph massively skews towards that high danger area. Before that, he was always in the mid-range area. That's where he took his shots. And look, go back to watching him in college and everything. Matty Beniers' shot has never been his calling card. That was never the thing that made him a standout prospect and led to him being picked second overall. You go back to his draft interview, and the number one thing he talked about needing to improve was his shot. Like, he knew that was his weak point. It kind of always has been. But you know where you don't need an elite shot? 5 feet away from the crease. You just need to be able to get your stick on it. And Matty Beniers has the reflexes. He has the know-how. He understands body position and leverage so that he can box out defenders, and he can make sure that his stick is the one to get to those loose pucks in those high danger areas. And I think that that's been making the difference for him. And assuming he continues to play this way, assuming Lane Lambert continues to be the coach, all of that, I don't know why the production for him would cool down. Like, it feels like as high as his shooting percentage is right now and how skewed as it is through the new year, because everything he's touching is going in at the moment, it feels like that is probably closer to what it should be than the massive dry spell that he was in through the first half of the season, where he was still playing the right way and he was like the only guy in the NHL to be in that area and just not have success. And I have to assume a lot of that was him just learning the ropes of how to play in that high danger area net front.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to describe it too, because look, I think the actual long-term production is going to be somewhere in between the new year numbers and what it was earlier in the season. That's just kind of what, these regression averages dictate. That said, I'm totally with you. I think what we're seeing now is closer to what we'll end up seeing consistently than at the start of the season. And just go back, and I recommend to anybody watch, because I made a montage of Matty Beniers' goals from this season, back when he had 9, and you can look at the ones since then. They've been largely the same. I think I put it up on our Instagram reels. It's up on YouTube Shorts. It's just, the title is just "Why Matty Beniers is Scoring Now," and it's like podcast clips from earlier. But I did a video clip of just all of his goals back to back to back to back to back, and you absolutely see that, like, where he is and the diving into the zone and all that stuff. Like, it's working, and it's intentional. Like, if the percentile, like you said, of his high danger chances hadn't really changed, it was largely consistent with the last couple seasons, but he was scoring at this incredible rate, that's a sign that, okay, this isn't sustainable. This is a shooting percentage bender. This is going to come back down. But we are seeing real differences in where he's shooting from, the types of chances he's getting.
Yeah, no, it's legitimate. I think it's really, it's something we've talked about all along with him, and it's not just been us. Like, everybody's kind of talked about it, about him needing to work to the inside more. Like, that is just where centers need to play in the NHL in order to have that counting stat production, and frankly to make a bigger impact on the ice as well, right?
I mean, I think you can also ask the question of like, since we've been talking about it for multiple years, why did it take this long? But that's a separate conversation.
Look, he's not the biggest guy, and it's just not natural to him, right? And he needed the right coach to put it in the right perspective to get him to do it. And this is something that I always love when talking with the Seattle Torrents head coach, Steve O'Rourke, about differences in learning styles and approaches and how you have to learn that with your players and take those different approaches to in order to communicate and cover all your bases with somebody. And I mean, I believe that in education in general. I mean, that's certainly something I was very much raised with. I know you were as well. And so I think it's one of those things where, you know, it's very possible that just nobody was explaining it in the way that made it make sense to Matty Beniers before, right? And that's not Matty's fault. It's just nobody took the time to figure out what was going to work for him and how to get him to do it. I also think that again, that this offensive system is just so much more about getting down low. Like I have Jared McCann up right now. Jared McCann is in the 98th percentile in shooting percentage in high danger areas this season. Like I said, Jared McCann is playing a lot lower in the offensive zone than he has before. Like I do think some of this is just because for the first time you have a coach who, again, because he's preaching defensive structure, because he's preaching low event hockey, Lane Lambert has been around the block. He understands that if you're going to play a low event game and still win that game, you have to manufacture goals. Again, the thing you and I have been talking about for years that this squad has needed to do, get bodies net front, grind out goals, score those dirty goals, manufacture these goals. And under both Dave Haxtell and Dan Bylsma, the team did not do that. Lane Lambert knows if you're playing a low event style, that is going to be one of the few consistent ways you're going to be able to get the 2 or 3 goals you need to, in theory, win that low event game. And he has them actually playing that way. And I think that that's just unlocked a lot for really everybody offensively. And it's one of those kind of on a normal team, in a normal set of circumstances, I don't think that would unlock everybody's offense. And you'd start seeing players have better offensive production playing in a low event system. But because the Kraken were so, I'm trying to find another word other than the one word that's coming to mind because it's mean, but because they struggled so much offensively, it's actually meant that they've improved, right? Just by doing those little things, right? Like by not trying to play a fast and loose and creative offensive style, you've actually improved them. Like you've made it so that they are more efficient out there when they're on the ice. And that's, go figure that Lane Lambert would be the guy to do that and unlock all of these guys' offensive potential.
Yeah, I think it also just speaks to that so much of it comes down to like the habits and the effort and all that consistency. Because what did we hear? We heard plenty from Haxtell and from Bylsma that like they need to do this. They got to get inside. They got to be better at it. We heard it from the players. We got to be better at getting inside. We got to go to these areas, and they just wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. Credit to Lambert. He's the one guy who's gotten the team to actually do the stuff that everybody has said and known the team needs to do.
Yep. That's it.
Good on Lane Lambert.
There you go. Yeah, no, I know. It feels like no matter what we do today, it's just all coming back around to Lane Lambert and what he's been doing with this squad. Even when we're talking about the individual performers there. All right, so we've talked about can they win the division, and I think we're both in agreement that they certainly can. I've kind of dropped hints about it, about the idea that perhaps they might be one of the teams that might be a little slower coming out of the Olympic break just because their players won't be playing for the most part for the vast majority of the Olympic break, RJ. Obviously, that's good for a lot of reasons. Players get to spend time with their families. They get to recharge. They get to heal up from all the bumps and bruises that you pick up over the course of the year and everything. But we've also heard in the past, even just over holiday breaks, all-star breaks, that it can be a little tough to get your body back up and going when you're out of the swing of things there. And so do you think the Kraken are going to be one of the teams that maybe has a little bit of a slow start coming out of the Olympic break when we see them on the other side?
I'm not even sold that they will compared to their opponents, because that's the thing. Like I think everybody is going to have a slow. I think you're going to see some some maybe low quality hockey, or I mean, more exciting hockey potentially if you want, just because every team is going to be a little rusty. But I think in the grand scheme of things around the league, not really. I actually, I can't believe for the first time ever, I'm really believing in this group's ability under Lane Lambert. It comes back to that again, to get focused right away and to maybe shake off that rust a little faster than most. And I look at the schedule. I know, I'm sorry, I keep coming back to the schedule, but it's such an easy schedule going forward. I mean, in the, however many games they have until the trade deadline, which is not too many, like 8 or 9 games they have to the trade deadline. You're only facing 2 teams that are any good. Like, you should be able to be, and a lot of these teams are not sending a ton of players to the Olympics either. You should be in the same boat with them. And I trust them more than, say, a St. Louis, who's on the schedule twice, or, Vancouver, who's on the schedule right after, to be able to get things going. I wouldn't be surprised to see a loss in the first game back at Dallas. That's a tough assignment. They've got a lot of players playing in the Olympics. Yeah, maybe you can mark that one as a scheduled loss or something close to it. After that, they should be right back to what they're doing now.
Yeah, all I had written for this as my answer to my own question was they shouldn't have any more trouble than anyone else.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
That's all it is. You mentioned the trade deadline there, though. Given where the Kraken are in the standings, does this change what you think they do at the trade deadline? Because last time we had talked about the trade deadline, we had talked about them potentially selling some pieces off. That was kind of the idea, certainly from the insiders around the league, was maybe that the Kraken were going to be looking to sell. But if we're talking about them being this close and within striking distance of a division lead, do we still think they do that? There's no way they can, right?
Yeah, no, they're not going to sell off these key pieces. They're not going to. It's the ship has sailed on that. I think they're going to keep the one option I could still potentially see is the whole sell and buy thing, where maybe you trade away a Jamie Alexiak and you go get a forward or someone that helps you like that, where at the end of the day you're buying, it's just you're shuffling some things around. I could see that, but otherwise I don't even think they're going to do that. Like, I just don't think they're going to sell off anybody given the position that they're in. Like, you beat Anaheim and LA coming up, and like I said, I think it's very hard for you to miss the playoffs. You'll have a 4 or 5 point lead on those 2 teams going into the Olympic break. They're not going to sell. So it's just a matter of how much of a swing do they decide to take, buying or not. I could still see them doing the year 2 route, where you don't want to mess with the chemistry. You leave the team as it is. You view Eberle, Schwartz, Alexiak as your own rentals, basically, and you just leave it that way. Or they could try and go big game hunting. I think that's what they're signaling that they want to do.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you look at the recent reports about maybe floating Shane Wright out there. There was even one, I don't really buy it, from like Nick Kyprios about Matty Beniers could even be available, for the right player coming back. And I think really the key with that is just they're signaling that they want to be serious about bringing in a star player if someone like that should be available. And really, for the first time in their history, because I under Ron Francis, there was no chance they were ever going to get anything like that done. I think Bottrell's trying to signal, hey, this is different here. We want to be in on those conversations if a star player is available. I don't think they're going to be able to get something like that done by the deadline. Those are usually off-season trades. So I think we'll probably just see something minor.
No, I'm totally with you. I won't take all the time to just echo everything you just said, but I'm right there with you on everything. I think we're probably not going to see much action come trade deadline either direction, because I also don't know that they totally feel like they should add and necessarily mess up the chemistry that they're kind of finally hitting on. And certainly when it comes to the big deal trades that, yes, they absolutely want to do, they never happen. Right? Like, we're going to see one before the deadline with Panarin, just because he has to get moved. Like everybody on both sides has signaled he's going to be moved. He will be, before the deadline. The Rangers absolutely need to move him. But for the most part, all the other big names that are out there, they're all off-season trades. That's where that business is always done, because you need the time to figure out all the moving pieces, potentially get other deals involved to shuffle around money and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just too complicated to handle before the deadline. The one exception for that is if everybody's sitting at home during the Olympics and they all get talking. Right? So maybe there's a small chance because of the Olympic break. It's been so long that who knows what's going to happen during the Olympic break for a lot of these teams. But I think a lot of that Olympic break for most teams is going to be handled internally, just looking at their own situations, I think that's when you're going to see a lot of the teams that uh, probably don't realistically have a chance to make the playoffs kind of finally make that decision internally. I think it's going to be a real introspective time for most teams around the league. I don't think there's going to be a lot of conversations amongst everybody trying to get that big deal done. It would kind of surprise me if that's how it was handled, with, again, the exception of the Panarin deal. We talked about that on the Red Glare. It actually makes all the sense in the world for the Panarin deal to get done during the Olympic break and for everybody to make their pitches to him on an extension and everything. But I don't think anything else will kind of get done there. And I think the Kraken are largely going to stand pat at the deadline, which, why wouldn't you? If you're within striking distance of the division, it'd kind of be weird to upset that situation there. All right.
Yeah. Quick yes or no. Do they do anything? Do they make a trade, transaction, whatever, before the Olympic roster freeze tomorrow?
Before tomorrow? The only
Yeah.
thing would be potentially sending somebody down for CV.
Okay, so essentially no.
Yeah, I don't think they do something with
Okay.
another NHL team.
I
If
agree,
it's going to be like
but-
Melanson goes back down to CV so he stays playing, I could see something like that. But I don't know that it would be anything greater than that.
Yeah. Even then, like I wouldn't.
I'm not sure.
It'd be worth it.
Yeah,
I'd
I
want
don't
him
know.
up
I
for
don't
these
know.
2 games.
I don't know
Yeah.
that they would do that, but that's the only thing I could even see personally. And speaking of Jacob Melanson, we got to talk about him. RJ just set the franchise record for most hits in a game with 12 against the Vegas Golden Knights. Significantly more hits than minutes played on that front. RJ, what have you been seeing from Jacob Melanson, and particularly on the hits front? What are you seeing with him vis-a-vis the all-timers?
Yeah, and this is interesting because look, Jacob Melanson is hitting everything that moves. We see it. We see it. If you watch a Kraken game, you notice it right away. And it's something that the Kraken have never seen before. The Kraken have never had a player who's hit like this. And I wanted to see around the league because as an NHL fan, as a fan of hockey, I haven't seen something like this in a while. It feels like for a player to come into the league hitting like this, and especially the way it feels like almost kind of just juicing the hitting stats. He is getting some big hits in there along the way, but man, he takes every opportunity to finish a check in a way that like it almost reminds me of like some of those great PPR players in fantasy football where it's just the little dump off catches too. They get those as well as the bigger catches. It just reminds me of that a little bit.
I'm feeling
And
very
so-
targeted for having Wandale Robinson on my team every year.
I was looking right at you there, Dylan. I was thinking of you. I know you like to target those PPR guys for sure. So if you're playing fantasy hockey, which I know you do, Dylan,
Mhm.
you should have Jacob Melanson because if your league counts hits for anything, he is a cheat code. But I was curious, okay, where does this rank against some of the real heavy hitters, no pun intended, but in the NHL, some of the all-time greats? And so just one thing I decided to do while I was on the light rail on the way back from SeaTac yesterday, I had a lot of downtime, was I looked at the top 10 NHL hitters of all time. And by the way, hits only became a recorded stat in 07-08. So I'm sure you'd have a different list if this went back all the way to the 70s and whatnot. But we're basically looking at salary cap era here just a little bit after that. And so I looked at the top 10 all-time hitters and how many hits they had through their first 21 NHL games. Now, limited sample size for Melanson. He's only played 21 games. Wanted to kind of do apples to apples. And what I found was really interesting to me. So running down this list of the number of hits of the top 10 all-time hitters through their first 21 games, Matt Martin at the top with 97. Impressive output there. Radko Gudas with 85, and I'll just go 84, 71, 68, 56, 55, 54, 41, 22. That's the top 10 in their first 21 career games. There's 3 guys on the list whose career started before hits were recorded. I just used the first 21 games of their career where hits were recorded. So 97, the top of that list. Jacob Melanson has 112 hits through his first 21 NHL games. So I was curious how the start of his career compared to the all-time greats at hitting through the start of their careers. He's lapping a lot of them, and nobody's even close. I don't think we really understand how special it is what we are seeing, and it does raise the question of can he keep this up? Because you look at his hits pace, Like, if you put this over what he's done through 21 games, you put this over an 82 game stretch, it's like, what, 300? I responded to it somewhere. I got to pull this up. But like, it's like 366 or something. That would be the second most all time in a season.
Yeah, I was going to say, Hockey Reference has his NHL 82 game average for his career would be 437 hits.
Oh, 437. Yeah, I had the number wrong. 437. So I should have had that up to the start. I couldn't find it fast enough. 437 hit pace over a full season.
Which is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It's second all time behind Kiefer Sherwood last year, who set the all time like single season hits record. That's the pace at which Jacob Melanson is hitting.
It's like hard to even think about, right? Like, to contextualize it because of how many hits it is. Like, it's ridiculous how many hits it is. I look at Kiefer Sherwood right now this season. He's played 44 games this season. He has 210 hits. Like Melanson's right there with him, and already with Kiefer Sherwood, it doesn't feel real, right? Like, it doesn't feel like something that's possible. But I guess because Sherwood's doing it, I guess it's sustainable for Melanson, right? Like, there is somebody setting the precedent for it.
Yeah. So I got the question about how sustainable this is, and I think Sherwood he demonstrated it is sustainable over the course of a full season.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, I'm not sure. We haven't really seen anything like this. Certainly not to start a career either.
Right.
And so, by the way, before we get, because I have some like bigger picture questions here, but before that, actually, perfect timing, like reverse deep dive curse here. I just got an email from our friend Chuck, who added some more stats on Melanson.
Oh, perfect.
What timing? Mid podcast, I get this email, so I want to read this. According to Natural Stat Trick, Melanson is first among players with his ice time, 194 plus minutes this year, at a rate of 33.6 hits per 60 minutes.
Jeez.
And is about 7 hits per 60 above the number 2 guy. So there is as much of a gap between Melanson and number 2 as there is between number 2 and number 15.
Yeah.
Now, I think this is interesting too. He's also second in the league in hits taken rate at 12 per 60. He's second to Zach Metzo in Buffalo. He says, amazing that Melanson is still out hitting opponents by almost a 3-to-1 rate, despite being just about the most hit skater in the NHL.
Yeah.
And again, what's remarkable about this too, I'm sorry, I'm going to read this out until I've just gotten all the stats out. He said, you'd think a guy that hits like Melanson would be committing penalties all the time, but among the top 30 skaters in hits per 60, Melanson is 28th in penalties per 60. Mm-hmm. So he's not even taking a bunch of penalties. Also, just on the other side of the coin is who hits the least. Jack Quinn and Jack Hughes rank right next to each other.
Yeah, I believe it.
As the least hitter. And then Chuck also adding that he thinks that Melanson's hits can be a value to the Kraken in the playoffs. He did studies last spring on what won in postseasons, indicated the team's hits percentage, like teams with high hits percentage, have done well. And I think also too, because of course you have to give the asterisk here as he does, that, when you hit players, you don't have the puck. Mm-hmm. That's kind of necessarily what that means. I think if you're seeing a defenseman hitting a lot, that's bad, because it means you're probably in the D zone and you don't have the puck, versus a forward hitting a lot. That's usually on the forecheck, and that can be in the effort of getting the puck back.
Right. I agree with that. I think for forwards, it's generally a little bit better. And for a fourth line player, I think it's generally better as well. Just
what the role is, what the situation is. Yeah,
exactly. Right. Like that fourth line is probably not going to be the line that's driving offense for you game in, game out. Maybe at times for the Kraken it has been, but ideally in a perfect world, that's not what it is. What your fourth line would be in a perfect world is an energy line, a line that can go out there for 10 to 12 minutes a night, keep bad things from happening, force the other team to still have to work, even though you don't have your best players out there on the ice, and just make life generally difficult for them. And that's what I really think the fourth line has been doing for the Kraken lately, and what I think the fourth line is when Jacob Melanson is on the fourth line for them, and why I think then we're seeing that overall team success when he's on the squad is just because the fourth line turns into a real traditional NHL energy line where they go out there, they get everybody fired up with how they're playing, right? It keeps your spirits high on the bench as you're recovering from your shift, gets the crowd engaged, right? Or it takes the crowd out of it if you're on the road because they're just seeing their team get beat up. Generally, fans don't cheer for that, rightly so. And it just provides a lot for you in the the very legitimate feels good department, right? And that is such a big part of it. We talked about that earlier with Matty Beniers and Jared McCann, the confidence, feeling like, everything's working for you. Having that energy line go out there and provide that energy, hence why they're called the energy line. They play with energy, they provide energy. It does a lot for a group. And I do think that having this line out there that Lane Lambert knows he can trust, that he can put them out there against anybody. He doesn't have to worry about only playing them against other teams' bottom six lines. The fact that he can put them out there against anybody, things are not going to go bad for the Kraken. And if anything, they're going to go well for the Kraken because they're going to boost morale. They're going to get everybody excited. They're going to fire up the crowd at home, all of that good stuff. It just goes so far for then what you're able to do with the rest of your deployment. Like the fact that this fourth line is going out there and playing a lot against other teams' second lines and taking other teams' second lines out of the equation. Well, now your top nine get to have a positive matchup somewhere because that second line's out of the equation for 10 minutes a night, right? That means you have 10 minutes where you, in theory, should be having a really good matchup out there. And so and a lot of that is Jacob Melanson and his physical play and what he's been able to do there on the forecheck, hitting and forcing other teams to not be able to get the breakouts that they want, slows down their rush of chances, gets them bogged down in the neutral zone because they all clump up there. It makes it harder to gain zone entries, right? That is all just a byproduct of Jacob Melanson laying out a hit on a defenseman when they have the puck in their own zone, right? Like it has this cascading effect. And what he does is just so invaluable. Now, as for how sustainable it is, I don't see why it wouldn't continue to be sustainable for him in the short term. I think that it's, Kiefer Sherwood's proving it. I think that we're going to carve out a space in today's NHL for guys to be able to do this and run up these hitting numbers because of, kind of how hits are recorded and all of that kind of stuff. And we won't get into all that now. We can in the future. But I think that there is a space for it, given the way games are played and the amount of puck control that is had today versus in years past just gives you more opportunities for it. The thing that will make it unsustainable is the fact that, yes, if you are throwing out the most hits and you're taking the most hits, it's just a lot of punishment on your body. And it's a lot of opportunities where, one, over time things will break down, but also you're talking about lots of sequences where at least one body is probably dropping to the ice and things can just get messy, right? And I'm not even referring to, I know everybody's minds just went to like skate blades. I'm not even referring to that. I'm just talking about when every time you fall to the ice, you might land wrong, right? And you bang something up, or when somebody else goes down to the ice. And you watch this with Jacob Melanson, he's tangled up there for a second with them. That could lead to him going down and falling wrong in a situation like that, right? Anytime you're talking about this much physical contact, it just opens up the door for those low percentage but dangerous situations to occur. And he's right now inviting those low percentage opportunities a lot more than any other hockey player is out there. And they are low percentage, but when you're giving yourself this many chances at it, right? Like you have to worry at some point that maybe something happens. I know that's not actually how statistics work, but it's just something to consider.
Yeah, I mean, look, hockey is a lot of punishment, and we see players that take and give a lot less contact than Melanson just have wear and tear and things that add up. Like the human body is not meant to play 82 NHL games per year. It's just not. And so that's eventually going to take a toll on him like it would for anybody. I mean, I think about Kiefer Sherwood, really the only other player in that realm. I was trying to look up exactly what the injury was, but he is currently injured. He is out injured. He's missed after the next year after, setting the NHL hits record. He is currently injured for his new team, the Sharks. He hasn't played a game for them yet. So injuries are going to happen. That's part of the game. I think that's part of the equation that Melanson knows, that he's getting himself into. But he gets to be at the NHL level. This is really interesting. And I think maybe this is a better conversation because we don't have the time now for the armchair GM stream, but I'm going to dive into this. Melanson's contract's up at the end of the year. What does that extension look like?
That's an interesting question.
He's an RFA with no arb right, so he doesn't have a lot of leverage. But if he's hitting at a historic pace, like how is that valued? If you're his agent, what are you asking for? What does that look like? And are you using, I mean, of course, like Sherwood's further in his career, he's got UFA leverage, but are you using that sort of, if Sherwood gets like 5.5 or something, are you using that and saying, look, this player, he's an RFA, we're going to take less because he doesn't have the leverage, but this is going to be a $5.5 million player if he keeps going like this. Now, Sherwood has more scoring ability than Melanson doesn't have, but like it just gets really interesting about what that contract ends up looking like. Well, and the term, like how much term do you want to go if you're the Kraken?
The term's going to be really interesting. I think even more so than the dollar figure, just because the dollar figure is going to be low, just because of he's a fourth liner and he has no leverage, so it's going to be a low dollar figure. But the term is going to be really interesting. And the other thing that his side can leverage is the fact that like he is massively endearing himself to this locker room. Like, what you don't want to do is mess around with the guy that everybody loves and that brings that positive energy, right? And gets guys to want to go out there in game 55 of the 82 game season, right? And so that's going to be another thing that if I'm, part of his, whether I'm his agent or part of his management team, that's the kind of side of things I'm leaning into is just like, well, go ask anybody in that locker room how much I mean, how much I matter, right?
And you're talking to a front office who, after the Kraken's year 2, they dealt with the situation where they had some fourth liners who were well liked around the team and were part of the team's success, a big part of it, that they let go immediately after. You think Francis and Bottrell might be a little wary of making that mistake again? Totally different. Like Blonstock being 40 goal scorer like Morgan Geekie, very different. But like, I don't know. I might, if I'm Melanson's agent, try and draw some parallels there. Yeah. Even if they're a little shaky.
Could be worth it. But
I think it's amazing what we're seeing. Like we can see the hits. We can see the way he plays with energy every night. But I think Kraken fans need to know what Jacob Melanson is doing is historic.
Yes. Lots of historic things for the Kraken. A lot of stuff on the franchise front. But for Jacob Melanson, it is just all-time levels historic, and that's really cool to see. Anything else from anything that you want to bring up before we close things out? Obviously we're over the hour mark pretty decently at this point. The only thing for me was just talking about Matty Beniers back when we were. One of the things I wanted to mention, but there wasn't really a good time, is that the confidence and everything that he's gaining is kind of rounding out his game as a whole. His face-off percentage has been up this year as well. Throughout 2026, 50.2%. In 2026, it's brought up his season total to 49.1, which is pretty good for him. And if you look at his last 4 games, the worst he's been over his last 4 games, 62.5% the face-off.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So
that's really good.
Just saying, Matty Beniers, that confidence is starting to bleed over just as not only to the offense, but also to face off dot as well.
No, that's really good. I was going to try and quickly look up what his like 2026, since the new year overall face off numbers have been. But I mean, I think they are relying on him too for some bigger draws as well.
Yeah.
And it seems like the ones that I noticed that he's winning are the high leverage ones. Maybe that's just because those are the ones I'm paying attention, but still.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's again, because it's 50.2%. He's 104 wins, 103 losses in 2026. But again, for Matty Beniers, historically, that's very good. Like he's getting better at a rate that's normal for centers to be getting better, but it's starting to come now specifically, I think, because of the confidence he's gaining from the rest of his game.
Yeah, and you can keep that in mind too with the Kraken having so many young centers. Like it often does take till age. I mean, he just turned 23, 23, 24 before a player can even start to look decent in the dot. It's just one of those things with face-offs that happens.
Agreed. Anything else from you?
No, I think that's it. Awesome. I'm just excited for tonight. Everyone, make sure to join us tonight.
I know. Definitely want to see as many people as possible in there for the live game commentary for this big game against Anaheim. I'm really looking forward to that. And then, of course, everybody can join us for the post-game live reaction afterwards and then see how Kraken finish things up against the Kings tomorrow before this big Olympic break, and then can't wait to watch the Kraken players that are going to the Olympics, see how they perform, and just kind of see where the standings and everything lies once we finally hit that break. It's been a long time coming. Can't wait for it, and can't wait
one
to
more
see
thing,
what the Kraken
Dylan.
are. Okay.
One more thing, Dylan. I want to hold you to something. All right, and I'll go out there too. This is our last episode before the big game on Sunday. Score
True.
prediction. Go.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. Like,
I'm
I'd
putting
have
you
to
on the spot right now.
I'd have to think about things. Let's go. Kind of both offensive.
I can do mine first if you want to have a second.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was not even in the mindset at all of thinking about football.
I know. I'll go 31-13 Seahawks.
Okay,
I don't think it's going to be close.
I don't necessarily think it's gonna be close either, but I think like there might be some soft stuff at the end potentially. I was thinking something in like that mid 30 range for the Seahawks, and then like 24 for the Patriots.
Okay.
Just I feel like it's gonna be a
Okay.
little bit more of like a QB battle. But
All right.
especially as the
Believe in
game
Drake made
wears
a
on.
step up, make it a game.
Especially as the game wears on. You know, Super Bowls, you got the long halftime. Offenses tend to come out in the second half better. We always see them kind of run up the score a little bit more than you think they would. Than say in a championship round. I don't know. I don't ever pay attention to that, so maybe it just feels that way. Who knows? Anecdotal evidence. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Really appreciate everybody joining us for this one. And one more time, want to shout out Rico Tessendor and the law offices of Rico Tessendor for sponsoring the podcast. And while we hope none of you ever need his services, the odds say that at some point someone out there will be involved in an accident, whether on the road, at work, or anywhere in between. And when you are, we hope you call Rico at 425-778-9800 or visit his website, ricotessendor.com, to schedule a free consultation. He's won millions of dollars for his clients and helped thousands of people in the greater Seattle area. And as a fellow member of the ECH community, we know he'll help you too. That's going to do it for this episode of The Deep Dive. We'll see you all next time.
Hey everyone, before we go, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, especially our Terror of the Deep patrons.
Thank you so much for making all this possible. We really appreciate your support.